Hi there, Prairie Plant Girl here. I thought today that we would continue on with the What Am I Sowing series that I am doing here for the 2021 season. So today what I thought we would talk about is my Brassicas. Now I'm just going to talk about some of my bigger kind of heading type Brassicas. I'll leave the kohlrabi and turnips and kale, that type of thing, for another video maybe. We'll see, but I thought we have enough stuff here to get us probably a long video already, so I thought we'd just stick with what I have here. So let's get into the main topic, which is what am I growing, and then I'll talk a little bit about what I plan to do to help make them work better for me. In the last few years I think I've started to kind of figure it out, so hopefully I have, and I'll share with you what I've been doing to try and help them work better. So the first thing that I was going to talk about was the broccoli, and I have three kinds here. I grew all three kinds last year, and we had some pretty nice broccoli. I have Imperial, Arcadia, and Green Magic. Green Magic says it's early and uniform, and I would say that's pretty true. I don't have a lot of seeds here left, but I'm hoping to get some really nice broccoli out of this. It matures fairly quickly. It made nice large size heads for me, and we really enjoyed the flavor of it. I also have Arcadia. Arcadia is supposed to be better for cool weather, and I believe this was the first one I put in the ground last year, so it's some of the first broccoli that we got, just because I put it in early. It was quite cool out still. The ground was a little bit cool, but I got it in there and I got it going early. Arcadia, if I remember correctly, had a paler head on it, but still nice sized heads of broccoli. And then there's the Imperial, and the Imperial is one that I picked because it's supposed to be more heat tolerant. And this one did continue to perform for me a little bit nicer throughout the warmer months. So that's a bonus to have something like that will perform for you. And again, this had a nice color on it, and it had good sized heads. Though if I recall, this one, you know, being Imperial, you think it would be like huge, and if I remember correctly, they weren't quite as big of heads, but that could be towards the end of the season when I'd already cut out the main head that I'm remembering. But with broccoli, when you get that main head, you can cut it out of the plant and then it'll grow side shoots out. And I enjoyed all of these, and I wound up freezing some. I believe it was the Imperial that I wound up freezing for the most part, but they froze well and we enjoyed them for a month or two into the winter months after my garden was done. So three kinds of broccoli. How about cauliflower next? Cauliflower is one that I've been trying to do for probably about 6, maybe more years now. And I finally, in the last 2 years, been getting heads of cauliflower, and last year was some of the nicest heads of cauliflower that I've gotten. And so I think I've finally kind of figured out this Brassica thing with these. Freedom was one that I did last year, and it's a white-headed cauliflower. They were very nice. They had a really nice white color, nice tight heads, and they actually stood up to the weather fairly well. They say they're self-wrapping. I'm not sure if that's true entirely, but maybe, like I said, I am still a bit of a beginner, so maybe I'm being a little more cautious with the wrapping than you need to be. But what that is, if you're new to cauliflower and you're looking at growing it, is when the cauliflower heads out, if you want it to keep that white color on the head and have it while it's growing and maturing, you take the leaves up and you wrap them over top of the head, and I use like a big clip kind of thing. Some people use elastics. Just whatever you have to just kind of clip them up. And some are supposed to, the leaves are supposed to kind of come up and really wrap over the heads well, so that you don't have to do that so much. But I still wrapped mine, and I found the ones that I did discolor a little bit. If they, the leaves maybe came loose from the clip or something and were exposed to the light, then they did discolor. So I'm not sure I would really count these as self-wrapping, but it was a really nice cauliflower. In fact, my daughter loves raw cauliflower. She has been wanting me to grow it, but a little bit scared because like I said, I've been trying for years and it's been not the best cauliflower. And last year's cauliflower was really good. And she said, Mom, it tastes like store-bought. And in the case of the cauliflower, I'm going to take that as a compliment from her, because it was the best cauliflower that we've ever had out of the garden. And some of it I would say tasted better than store-bought, but I was the one growing it, so maybe that's just me. Another one that we grew last year and I bought more seed for this year, so I have lots of seed for it, is cheddar. This is an orange cauliflower. It starts out kind of a pale yellow and it gets deeper. And it kind of threw us off at first when we were eating it, because you kind of expect it to have some different flavor to it, but it has a really clear, crisp cauliflower flavor, and it headed up really nice big heads again, and we really enjoyed eating this cauliflower once we got over the color of it. So that was another one that was good. I did wrap those heads. I don't think I noticed any difference. They say you don't really need to wrap the colored ones, and I don't think I probably did need to, but I was out there doing the white ones, so I did the yellow ones as well while I was there. And they say that with colored cauliflower and cabbage and things, that the cabbage moth larvae, the little green worms that can come in and eat your crops down pretty quickly on you, they're not as attracted to the colored ones. It's just not on their radar. And I have to say, I did not notice them as much on those orange ones. They did seem to be on the white ones. Not a big deal. I would pull them off, and I was also using BT on those, so could be part of why I didn't find as many. But a new one that we're going to try this year is graffiti, and I believe this is a purple one. Yeah, so I looked it up, and it's a purple one, and it says that it retains that purple color quite well even when it's cooked, and that's something with the cheddar. I'll try and get a photo for you, because I blanched some to freeze, and I think I have a good shot of that so you can see. So I'll have the graffiti, which will be new this year, and it's a purple cauliflower. It's supposed to hold that purple color quite well even when it's cooked. But they are supposed to be a little bit smaller heads. So we'll see how that turns out. But again, being a colored one, it should have a little bit more resistant to that, the cabbage butterfly larvae. So we'll see how that goes. So that's the cauliflower, 3 kinds of cauliflower. Then I have cabbage. And cabbage is something I enjoy eating. I'll chop it up for slaws. I like to roast it. I like to even just put it in wedges and barbecue it with a little bit of like olive oil and salt and pepper on it. We also enjoy it for cabbage rolls, so that's something that I'm looking at. We're not really sauerkraut people, so that's not something I'm looking for when I'm looking for varieties of cabbage. But last year I did the Taiwan cabbage. I wasn't really sure what I was looking for with this cabbage, to be honest. I don't know it, but I may have picked it a little bit early. I think I only had a couple of heads, but I didn't grow a whole lot of it. And I had a couple, and I gave 1 or 2 to my mom, I think, and we both enjoyed them. It's just a nice, like I said, I may have picked it a bit early. You know, still learning when to pick them and how to do that. But 2 others that I grew were the gunma and the stonehead. The gunma was the one that, if I had them straight, was the one that I enjoyed the most, and it grew nice big heads. In fact, I got a 10-pound head of cabbage. The only thing that was disappointing with that is I was using it to make cabbage rolls, and when I got into the middle of it, it actually had a lot of little heads inside of it. So I'm not sure if that's something that typically happens with this variety of cabbage, or if just that one did that for some reason. That's why it grew so big. But it was kind of fun to watch it grow in the garden, and it tasted good. And the leaves I had to wrap the cabbage rolls, the ones that I did get out of it, were really nice and big. So that was nice. The other one was the Stonehead. This one's supposed to be an earlier variety, about 3 to 4 pound heads, and it's supposed to be a really good hard-headed cabbage. And again, if the ones that I picked that I think were this, they were really nice. They were a good firm. I probably could have picked them, like left them a little bit longer. Again, I'm still learning, so I wasn't sure, and I was scared they would crack and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So, but they were good, but I think they probably weren't as firm as they could have been, and I probably could have left them a bit longer, but that all comes with time and learning. Then I have this year, I'm going to try the Mammoth Red Rock cabbage. My daughter does really enjoy red cabbage, just cut into strips. Like, she'll pull it out of coleslaws and salads and things just to nibble on its own. So I thought that might be something fun that we could experiment with in the kitchen with her. So I'm going to grow this. It's like it says, it's a reddish, purplish kind of head of cabbage. Again, it's my understanding that the worms, the cabbage moth worms, won't bother this quite as much as the rest. But I'm not even sure how big. 6 pounds. So that's a pretty good sized cabbage. So we'll see how this one works out. But that gives me 4 varieties of cabbage to try this year. We'll see how they all work out. And then another thing that I've been trying, started with last year, was Jade Cross Brussels sprouts. And they came up, they grew nice, they were starting to get little sprouts on them, they were doing pretty well. And then just as I was starting to really get excited for these Brussels sprouts, the canola beetles, or the flea beetles, just swooped into my garden and just decimated. They looked awful, and you'd pick them, you think, oh, you can clean them off, but they weren't something that you would want to eat, and they weren't fully mature. Like, I did eat a few that were just really tiny, but I think I can do a better job with these. And so, because you know, why would I get it figured out before I start new kinds? I also decided to get the Long Island Brussels sprouts, which I think are, what are they? 100 days. And these are also, the Jade Cross are also 100 days. I am supposed to have approximately 110 frost-free days here. So that gets me through my season, and we'll see how these turn out for me. So that gives me Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, and what is it? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 varieties altogether. Now, I think I am stretching the limits here. I'm hoping to get all of these into one planting bed, 4x8 bed. I'm hoping to do like one seedling, you know, 1 or 2 seedlings of each thing, and then a week or 2 later, another one, and then another one, and kind of have them going through in different stages and succession planting them, so that I don't have everything all ready at once. They have a little bit different maturity dates on the different varieties, and then when I'm putting them in at different times, that should kind of get me through the season. This may not work. This isn't a lot of space. This is really going to be pushing it for all of this. So I might wind up putting some things into some bigger pots and things like that. But I'm going to try this, see where this gets me, and then we'll go from there and see. Why I want to put it all in one bed is I found that it worked really well for me. I had my cabbage and my cauliflower all in one bed last year, and I grew a lot that matured at the same time, so I probably didn't need that much all together, and then I wound up with empty spaces. So I'm hoping I can work this. But anyways, I had it all in one bed, and I had a big frame put over it with netting, and that worked really well for me to be able to help keep the flea beetles, for one thing, off of them, and also the cabbage moth when they came along. It helped to slow down their invasion with that. Whereas some of the other things I had planted interspersed with other plants, and then I found it more difficult to keep them covered and keep the cover off the plants, because it's not enough with these plants to just lay a mesh or a netting over top, because if it's touching the plant, then that butterfly can still actually lay its eggs on the plant, and then they'll hatch and the worms will be inside your netting, which is exactly where you don't want them. So like I said, I'm going to try and get them going in this one planting bed. I also started using BTK last year as a spray. It's a biological spray that you can put on, and it gets inside the moth, the larva, when they eat the plant. It's on the plant, then the larva takes a bite of the plant, and it gets inside, and it actually kind of dissolves the worm from the inside out, or eats it from the inside out. So it's gross, but it helps to keep them in check, and it's very species specific, so it's not going to hurt larvae from a lot of your other beneficial creatures that you have. And another thing with that is if you're using it, the only butterflies that are really going to be really wanting to get in under that netting and maybe work their way in there are the ones that are after these brassicas. You're not going to have, your painted ladies or your swallowtails or your monarchs or anything else aren't really going to be motivated to get under there. So if you have that spray under there, it's not going to be affecting. I'm not sure if it would affect their larvae, but it stands to reason it might, being that some of them are similar in their, being butterflies and moths and things. So I'm not sure about that, but they won't hurt like ladybugs or parasitic wasps and things like that. So it's a pretty safe thing to use, but I still want to be careful where I'm using it and how I'm using it. Another thing that I'm going to have to be aware of with this planting bed that I'm putting them in, like I said, these plants don't like a lot of heat. And so if I can have that frame over it, if I need to, because this bed is going to be in a much sunnier spot. It's going to be in a hotter part of the garden, I think, than where I had them last year. So if I need to, I can put some shade cloth over it. So that's something that's also important, is just keeping, the roots cool and, giving them a little bit of, they don't necessarily want shade, but they don't want like hot sun shining on them, from what I found. I think one of the biggest things, though, to growing them through the summer in our climate, these types of plants, is consistent, deep watering. They want a lot of water. I think it helps them to keep cool and helps them to, put up with those hot days that we get in the summer. So if you're growing these in our climate, in that, where it's a quick season, it gets hot, like August can be quite hot, July can be fairly warm, and they still need to be growing then. We don't have those long shoulder seasons of spring and fall to grow these crops. So lots of water on them, I think, goes a long way to helping them to develop and keep cool. The ground's not getting hot and reflecting up. It's helping to keep them cool, and mulching them really well will help with that as well. So these are the brassicas that I'm sowing, the bigger brassicas, I guess, anyways. And those are my tips. If you're in my climate, that I have found that help is to net them to keep the pests off. BTK can be very beneficial, again, to keep those pests off as far as the cabbage worm goes. They might need a little bit of protection from the hottest part of the day, and lots of water. Also, I find starting them early and putting them in the ground as soon as it warms up a little bit, you might still be getting frost. And if you've hardened them off and, have a light cloth over them, like a harvest guard or something over them, they can take that little bit of frost that we're still getting early on in the season and it'll do them good to kind of get going that way and get established. They also don't like very acidic soil. You might need to lime your soil depending on where you are in our part of the province, and they like a compacted soil. So make sure when you're potting them up and planting them in that you're compacting the soil and rotating them, because they are subject to diseases that stay in the soil, and you want to make sure you're rotating your crop for these. But hopefully this didn't get too long. Hopefully you found it interesting, and we'll see how these do, and I'll keep you up to date once I get them going. I'll be planting these, I believe, the end of March. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.